Okay, have you ever felt like you've read all the books, you've heard all the advice on communication, but you still struggle to connect when it really counts? Well, you're in exactly the right place. We're going to close that gap, turning all that theory into a practical skill you can actually use every single day to get real results. So, let's dive in.
This quote from Dale Carnegie, this is everything for us today. It is so easy to just passively consume information, right? To read the articles, watch the videos. But the real transformation, the kind that gets you noticed, the kind that builds incredible relationships, that only happens when you stop just knowing and you start doing. This is your bridge to actually applying it.
So let me tell you a quick story about someone named Priya. She didn't try to change everything all at once. Nope, on day 1, her only goal was to just pause before reacting in meetings. That's it. Then by day 10, she added something new, naming emotions. She'd say things like, "It sounds like there's some frustration here." And the results? They were staggering. Within just 3 weeks, her meetings were totally different, her influence was growing, and in 3 months, she got a promotion. And it all started with one tiny, manageable change.
Priya's story isn't some magical one-off thing. It actually points to this huge universal principle. It's kind of like atomic habits, but for communication. Every tiny, consistent action you take builds on the last one. These small wins create momentum, and that momentum just compounds over time until, before you know it, you've achieved real mastery.
So, how do you actually start building these habits? Well, let's begin in the professional world. In meetings, in feedback sessions, places where the stakes are high and the rewards for communicating clearly are pretty much immediate. Think of this as your playbook for building those crucial habits at work.
We're going to focus on 3 key tools here. First, how to turn those one-way monologues into actual collaborative meetings. Second, how to shift your feedback from feeling like a critique to being an objective observation. And third, how to handle those tough conversations, turning what could be a conflict into a real connection.
Here's a simple truth. People will always commit to what they help create. Just look at the difference here. The before is a top-down order. The after, just by adding that simple question, "What are your thoughts?" it completely transforms a monologue into a dialogue. It's a tiny, tiny shift in language that invites people in and boosts engagement instantly.
And you know what? This same idea works for giving feedback. The word "you" can feel like a pointed finger, right? It immediately puts people on the defensive. But when you start with "I noticed," it suddenly becomes an objective observation. You go from being a critic to being a curious coach, and you invite them to reflect instead of just react.
Okay, so let's take these ideas out of the boardroom and bring them into the living room. Because the exact same skills that build influence at work, they're the very same ones that create deeper, more meaningful connections with the people we care about the most.
You know, in our personal conversations, it's often the little things, the micro behaviors that have the biggest impact. Using someone's name, subtly mirroring their words back to them, just nodding while they speak. These are all powerful social cues. They send a nonverbal message that says, "Hey, I'm here with you. I'm present, you matter." It's how you build rapport without saying a single word.
Now look at this switch. It seems simple, but it's profound. A statement like, "That's interesting," is, well, it's a conversational wall. It basically ends the exchange. But a question like, "What makes you see it that way?" That's a key. It unlocks the door to how they actually think. It shows you're not just hearing their final point, you're genuinely curious about their journey to get there.
And of course, we have to talk about digital communication. So much of our life now happens through a screen, right? In this digital world of Zoom calls and texts and emails, we lose all that tone, all that body language. The rules change a little, but the core principles of being clear and intentional, they become more critical than ever.
This might be the single most powerful edit you can make in your writing. The word "but," it acts like an eraser. It just invalidates everything that came before it. But when you replace it with "and," you validate their point while still getting to add yours. It transforms a potential digital fight into a collaboration before it even has a chance to start.
Now, this isn't just about feeling better. These techniques get you real, measurable results. As you can see here, these simple tweaks have a huge impact. In meetings, just using a strategic pause can boost engagement by 50%. For presentations, strong posture and a controlled tone can give you TED-level retention. But look at the impact on emails. Let's zoom in on that.
3 times the response rate. Just let that sink in. By combining that "I noticed" technique with a simple question at the end, like, "What are your thoughts?" you can literally triple your chances of getting a reply. That's a 300% improvement from a tweak that takes maybe 5 seconds. It's an absolutely incredible return on your investment. And here's what that 50% boost in meeting engagement actually looks like. The difference is just stark. We've all been in that standard meeting, right? Where people are just passively listening. But when you consciously apply a simple structure, like pausing for effect or grouping your points into memorable sets of 3, engagement skyrockets. You're not just talking at people anymore. You're actively guiding their attention.
Okay, so we've covered the techniques, we've seen the powerful results, but now we get to the most important question of all. How do you make these skills second nature? How do we actually build the habits so these tools are just there for you right when you need them most?
The process is actually surprisingly simple. First, you start small, just like Priya did, so you don't get overwhelmed. Second, you practice daily, even in low-stakes situations, to build that muscle memory. Third, get some feedback from someone you trust, because they'll see your blind spots. And finally, just take 2 minutes to think about what worked. This creates this powerful loop of practice, feedback, and getting better.
All right, enough talk. It's time to put all of this into action. I'm going to give you a concrete, immediate way to start with a really simple 3-day mini challenge. Let's do this.
Here is your super simple roadmap. Today, at work, just try using 2 of these techniques. Maybe replace one but with an and. Tomorrow, in a personal chat, try to open up a deeper conversation by asking, what makes you see it that way? And on day 3, send 3 emails or texts that use that thoughtful question at the end. That's it. 3 small actions in 3 days. Totally doable.
You know, the single most important thing to remember from all of this is that mastering communication isn't about some massive overhaul of who you are. It's about the accumulation of small intentional shifts. These tiny adjustments, when you practice them consistently, are the real levers that transform your leadership, your relationships, and your influence in the world.
Ultimately, great communicators are not born with some special gift. They are built. They're built one conversation, one email, one intentional pause at a time. They are the result of practice and awareness. So, the only question left is, how will you start building today?